Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Behind Her Brand Leadership Talk series. As you all know, we love to interview women from all different walks of life, all different parts of the marketplace. And today I'm excited because we have Melissa Flynt, and she's going to introduce herself here in a second. But I wanted to share with you because we typically have interviewed people in corporate America, people in nonprofit sectors, and all the different things. And so today, Melissa works really and truly in the marketplace in a different kind of way. And so I'm excited to introduce you to her, the work that she's doing. And I just encourage you guys to pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and I hope that you enjoy and are blessed by our conversation today. So, welcome today, Melissa.
Thank you. It's an honor to get to talk to you anytime.
Oh, it's going to be fun. So, before we jump into questions that I have for you, tell everyone a little bit about who is Melissa Flint.
Okay, so daughter of a king, love,
Mhm, mhm.
Jesus lover. I grew up a child of minister parents,
Okay.
and then got a psychology degree that I thought I would use, but haven't.
Yeah.
My husband calls me psychotic. It's great. And then I was an educator teacher and
Okay.
taught in public school for several years. And then I came home and was a stay at home mom and homeschooling mom for years and years and
Yeah.
years. And then when that came to an end, I
Mhm.
grieved it and
Yeah.
just looking for purpose
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so God led me to the marketplace. And so it's been so fun. Like, I really wanted to take the church outside of the walls,
Yeah.
but I found the church is outside the walls. It's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
so for about 5 years, yeah, I would say I've gotten to be out in the marketplace.
So let me take you back real quick before we jump into some of the marketplace questions.
Yeah.
When you made the decision from going from being an educator to being a full-time mom, I know some women struggle with that decision because it's tied to sometimes identity, it's tied to sometimes purpose, and all these different things that we attach to it.
Mhm.
When you came to that point where you felt like you needed to pivot and be at home, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what led you to that and how did you process that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew all along, my husband and I both, like even when we were talking about marriage and getting
Hmm.
married, we both had the heart for me to be a stay-at-home mom. So that
Okay.
was already in there.
Yeah.
And we tried to purposely live on his income so that that goal could happen.
Mhm, mhm.
But then the transition to homeschooling mom was
Yeah,
a definite, God told us both to do that. And I never thought I would
mhm,
do that. So I don't know if you
mhm.
were wanting that part or
Yeah.
just the other.
Well, how did you process that? Because there's times where God will say, "Here's where I'm calling you to," and it doesn't look like what we thought we were gonna be going. So how did you process that?
Absolutely. So it was time for us to think about my daughter attending kindergarten.
Mhm,
And so we just, about a block from our house, literally, there was a Mother's Day out. And I thought, okay, we've got to kind of separate because here
mhm,
she's going to go off and we've been attached. And so here we go. Well, it just wasn't well with my spirit. Like
yeah,
every day I thought, okay, she's down the street,
mhm,
laying on a mat on the floor, and she could be home comfy in her
mhm.
bed down the hall. And so
Yes.
I just wrestled with it. But finally, I went to a mentor. I had a friend at church that I really admired, and God
Yeah,
called her to do the same.
okay.
And honestly, thought she was crazy. Like, how in the world are you doing that? No way.
Yeah,
Like, this isn't for me. But I just kept, there was just a wrestling. And
mhm,
so the friend said, have your husband pray about it, and
yeah,
you pray about it separately, and then come back together and compare notes. And
mhm,
so my
mhm,
husband came back immediately and he said, it came on the radio on the way to work. When
yeah.
I got to work, someone walked up and brought the topic up. He's like, it was everywhere today. He goes, we're supposed to do it. And I went, what? Like, oh no. Like, it's crazy that I truly haven't met yet
Mhm.
a public school teacher that feels peace about homeschooling their own children.
Yeah,
It's so wild. But what
yeah,
I would say to that is I found that sometimes when God calls us to do something, it is scary
mhm,
because
mhm.
we have to rely on him.
Yes, yes. And what I'm hearing also, and I think it's also something important to point out, you sought obviously making sure you and your husband are on the same page, but even a mentor, but it wasn't like you were getting a lot of different opinions
Oh,
and input into it. And I think sometimes when we're feeling that sense of unease, we want to talk to so many people and we get so many thoughts, but it really sounds like you just really create a space for God to speak to you and your husband. And I think that's
yeah,
so vital as leaders and people who are we're doing all these different things, is to make space for him to really speak to us and confirm
yeah.
within us. Yeah.
If I may add, I will tell you that at that time, it wasn't very popular to
Yeah.
homeschool. And
Mm.
so what I found is I almost didn't want to talk to a lot of people because what
Hmm.
I found out later in the Bible, there's the topic of fear of God versus fear of man.
Hmm.
So fear of God, we're gonna be in touch and we're gonna obey and follow His leading.
Right,
Fear of
right.
man, we hold back and sometimes we don't obey because we value more what people think of us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what I did at first was tell people that asked me about it, oh, I'm just gonna do it for a little while. I'm just gonna get them a firm foundation, and then they're gonna go to
Yeah.
public school, because I cared about people's opinion.
Hmm.
But what happened was, um, God just very much convicted me one day and said, I
Yeah.
never said that.
Yeah.
Like He wanted me to walk that out until He said otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so now moving a little bit forward, you homeschooled all your kids and now they're gone. And so now you're in a season of identity.
Yeah.
Like, who am I now? Walk me through whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Like, how did you go from, oh my gosh, like you're in a grieving stage, to now where you are at feeling more like confident in where you're going forward? Because that's a big gap right there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you process that?
I think again through fear.
Mhm.
Again, God uses His people. So I had
Yeah.
a friend reach out for market ministry, an opportunity to do some network marketing.
Hmm.
And again, never saw myself doing that. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have those skill sets. I thought like that's just not
Hmm.
me. And
Yeah.
what I found, it helped get the focus off of me
Yeah.
and onto other people.
Hmm.
And so I'll be honest, like years ago in high school, I felt called to the ministry like my parents.
Yeah.
And so I was like, God, use me. And so I struggled back in the homeschooling days thinking that was using me
Right. Right.
until
Right.
I realized, or my mother in law helped me go, that's a high and holy calling. Then fast forward, and I thought, I don't know, talking to people about non toxic products to get in their home, is that ministry?
Yeah.
Until God gave me the realization that He's in the people business.
He is.
And so when we're in the people business, that's in line with His heart. And
Yeah.
and if I could take it further, I thought to myself today, He's in the relationship business.
Yeah.
So that is something that I love. And so it has become something fulfilling for me.
Mhm. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned that you love people. I know you're big on relationships, and you're also in the marketplace. But I also know one cornerstone about you is that you love to really spend time and get to know people very intentionally, which is, not something as common as it should be today. We're always quick to do quick stuff, texts, quick email exchanges, and that kind of thing. Where did your heart, you feel like, develop for really wanting to understand people's stories, their journeys? Because you have a genuine passion for that, to really understand someone's origin story all the way through.
So I would say that was modeled to me. My,
Okay.
my parents being in the ministry, my dad is just, he has this gift of seeing you. So,
Mm.
like, when you're talking to him, it's like the looking straight through you, not in an
Yeah.
uncomfortable way, but you're feeling valued as a
Yeah.
person. So that. And then my mom is like diehard servant.
Okay.
And so those were just modeled to me all my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question,
It
but
does. It is.
also my dad is a big storyteller himself.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I guess I grew up loving stories and just very, maybe too, the psychology degree makes me just analytical. I'm
Mhm.
just so curious, um,
Yeah.
but not in a creepy way.
You're definitely not that. I wouldn't even put you near that category.
Yeah, but in an interested way. And
Yeah.
I would say, again, it was modeled for me and how God wired me.
What would you say to someone that's like, okay, that is not my strength at all, but I know that I need to develop that strength because that isn't everyone's strength. And you and I both know when it comes to relationships, people don't want to feel like a transaction. They don't want to feel like they're part of like your client pool, if you will, or whatever it might be. They really want to feel like you care. So if someone is struggling in that space, what would you share with them?
Mm. Well, I would tell you what I think helped me realize that maybe I was made for marketplace ministry
Mhm.
was through networking opportunities. And so locally, another friend, actually the one that introduced me to
Mhm.
this group that I love so
Okay.
much is Melinda Lilly. And
Mhm.
so locally, she has a business referral group. And so in that group, it's really amazing. It's really kind of, like I said, a picture of the church outside the church
Yeah, yeah.
because we, everyone that's invited in, they only allow one person per industry.
Mhm.
And so we meet twice a month, and outside of that, we all market for each other's businesses. And so we're
Mhm.
really, it's a supportive community. And so what
Yeah,
happens is I'm serving other people, and by serving them, it comes back to bless me.
yeah.
So it's not transactional if my focus is on intentional support of the other person. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
right.
it just naturally happens that I'm also blessed in the process.
Yeah. There may be some people right now saying, "Okay, so what does she do?" So, and I know you're
Mm.
working on a couple of different things. So, tell us a little bit what you're able to share about what you're doing right now, because I know you're working on a couple of different things, but just share whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Well, so what I have been doing for the last 5 years, again,
Mhm.
after as I'm still growing up and learning what I want to do with my life, uh, I have been marketing for an online wellness company. And
Mhm.
again, because of health issues that I've had over
Yeah.
the years, it kind of also played into my ability to wholeheartedly share that
Mhm.
importance.
Yeah.
So I do market for them. But from there, I have
Mhm.
also gotten involved in this group and just been so edified and encouraged and seen.
Mhm.
And so you're one of the people in the group that noticed some things in me and called it out. And so it's kind of exciting because I am realizing more and more how God made me.
Yeah.
So combined with that and just the passions that He naturally gave me, I'm
Yeah.
writing a book right now, and I'm
Yes.
really excited about it. Just having a heart to share the wisdom that I've learned over the years. I would say when I first graduated with that psychology degree,
Mhm.
the psychotic degree, I thought, oh gosh, how do I use this now? Because I don't have a lot of life experience under my belt. And
Mhm.
the Bible talks about we comfort others in the way we're comforted. So I thought, I'm not ready to use this.
Yeah.
But fast forward all these years later, and I've lived a lot of life. I've
Yes.
been the stay-at-home mom, and I've been the homeschooling mom, and of course other things too, inside
Right.
and outside the church walls. So now I have a heart to share that wisdom
Mhm.
and hopefully prevent people from maybe some of the hardships that I went through,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
Um, but definitely heart to encourage people to stay the course, that
Yeah.
what they're doing is important.
I definitely want to pull out something back from what you just shared because one of the things that we love, why we like calling this leadership talk, because leading is not always easy. Um, Even just mentoring and helping people and trying to inspire them and challenge them is just not an easy thing to always do. But again, I know it's one of your passions. So I know that in your marketplace ministry, you mentioned about the health and wellness and you're writing a book, but I
Mhm.
also know another passion for you is even just pouring into young women.
Mhm.
Especially young mothers. And the Bible talks about that too. Tell us a little bit about that, where that passion came from. Why is that something that I know is an important part of your platform?
Mm. That's a hard one to answer. I don't know. I don't know if that's just something that He put into me,
Mhm.
just the natural gifting of encouragement. I don't know, but maybe because I've been there and done that. I really
Yeah.
don't know. Just knowing those are hard days where you're in the trenches. But
Mhm.
again, maybe because my mother-in-law was so good at pouring into me her wisdom,
Mhm. Yeah.
I benefited from that. Maybe not everybody has that. Maybe, one prayer that I prayed was when my daughter was growing up,
Mhm.
that there would be other godly examples
Mhm.
outside of our family unit that would say the same thing that I'm saying. So she
Yeah.
knows, it's not just my weirdo mom. Like there's other people that have this worldview,
Yeah.
biblical worldview. And so I don't know, maybe that's it. Like people have done that for me, and
Mhm.
I hopefully can do that for some other moms.
Well, I can definitely see, just from stuff that you shared, just as we've gotten to know each other, why that could be a passion too, just pouring back into young women. Because, even now, when you talk to young women and people who are just being new moms, new wives, new all the things, nothing can Google what the real experiences are like. you know, you can't really Google your way to answers versus sitting down with someone and having real conversation. And I know that's something that you are very gifted in. I think the very things that we're typically very gifted in, we don't always see it that way. But I know that young women and mothers are drawn to you because they
Mm-hmm.
feel at peace when they talk to you. And I know you're not coming from a place of judgment, and you'll listen to them. And I think that's something that is very important these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my heart is to be a safe space,
Yeah.
where never anyone would feel belittled or strange, that it's like we're all normal and we're all dealing with something, let's call it a level playing field. Something I thought of too when you were speaking is the other ways that I was mentored before that word was really popular
Mhm, mhm.
was through books and through blogs, and
Nice.
all the different ways. I know I love Elizabeth Elliot. She has
Yeah.
a teaching series online, and just there were so many wise godly women that poured into me that way. And so
Yeah.
maybe that's part of it too. I don't know, maybe I get the chance to do that too, because I think it was you actually in a conversation that said one-on-one I can minister to people, but through writing the book I can
Mm,
expand that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty exciting.
I love that. So right now, just two more questions. If
Sure.
someone was to say, okay, I want to be approachable, and maybe they have a struggle with that, and because I know many women that really do. They really look at a lot of women. They're like, how come people are not drawn to me? How come people are not coming to me for advice? What would you say to someone that's like, I really want to work on being more approachable and helping to create that space for people to trust and to feel like I'm someone that could be a safe place for them? Because you do that very well with probably not even realizing it, Melissa, but you naturally do that. But I think it's also something you have to keep perfecting too over time. So how do you do
Absolutely.
that?
Well, I think smile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not drawn to people that don't smile at me. You're
Oh,
just so that's a simple one.
yeah.
I would say eye contact,
Yeah.
probably. And then I would say be curious and ask questions. I know that doesn't come easy for everyone. I know people that are,
Mm-hmm.
more introverted. I think I will say that I've become more extroverted as I've
Mm-hmm.
practiced it,
Yeah.
and more comfortable doing it. So start by starting. But have some preloaded questions that you can ask people to get to
Yeah.
know them. And yesterday I had the thought too. I ran into the dollar store real quick to grab something for a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and it just hit me like, slow down and see the person that's checking me out. Slow down and
Mm,
look around me and see the people around me, because I think that's what we do. We
yeah.
rush, and so being in the moment and really like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it says be where your feet are
Yes.
would
Yes.
probably be a good way to start.
I love that because I think sometimes, like you said, we're just rushing and we're not being as intentional. And I love that because that's very much who you are. You definitely like take time. You don't rush a conversation, and so and I think that's something that makes people feel so drawn to you because they don't feel rushed. They don't feel like they're impeding on your time. And I think that's a valuable skill set for all the women listening here because we can have moments where we're just going, 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 and we need to remember to have moments of pause, but also moments of intentionality and
Mm-hmm.
really just saying, let me just kind of hear you. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
love
love
that.
that. I
So,
love
my
that.
last question to you is
Okay.
this. So, as a woman in the marketplace, you're writing, you're building, all the things, how do you stay truly connected to God in all that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think that that is something to be intentional about as well. I think
Mhm,
that the enemy does not like it. There's definite spiritual warfare, and he's always
mhm,
trying to distract and keep us from that because that is our power source, our battery, if you will. And
mhm,
so it is an intentional thing. I have struggled in the past with being a morning person, but
mhm.
without a doubt, it sets the tone of my entire day. One of the things that I know most recently was I caught myself like looking at my phone as it's been in the charger in the other room all night,
Mhm.
looking real quick to see if anybody had messaged or, the temptation then is to start looking, on social media.
Yeah.
And that was very much a conviction that that's not a good practice because that sets the tone for your day and it's going to
Mhm.
direct you. And so that
Yeah.
I think has been a big thing. I have gotten these little journal Bible lately.
Yes,
And
yes.
so each, there's a whole series, every book of the Bible. This is a little combo, but that's
Mhm.
also been helpful for me to stay
Yeah.
focused. So, like, I'm
Mhm.
reading the scripture and I'm writing and making notes at the same time. And so,
Yeah.
just it doesn't have to be any one way. But, I would say, like, how we're all different learners, our learning style.
Right.
Some of us are auditory, some of us are visual, some of us are
Kinesthetic.
kinesthetic.
Mhm.
I would say, like, God made you that way. So use the modality that works for you, whether it's listening to the word or, writing
Yeah.
it or reading it, but just intentionally getting in it. And then also, just like a conversation like this,
Yeah.
where one talks and one listens, um,
Mhm.
I've had to learn to not rush off and have it have been a one sided conversation. I think it's
Yeah.
important also to practice being
Mhm.
still so that you can
Yeah.
hear also because we want to rush off to the next thing.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So,
Yeah.
any closing thoughts that you want to share with women that are listening today? And I'll just preface this by saying we really do have women from all walks of life. Some that are Christians, some that are not, some that are leading teams, and some that are leading homes. It's a gamut that watches these. So, just any closing thought that comes to mind.
Yeah, I would just say that you are valued.
Hmm.
You have a purpose.
Yeah.
You were not created on accident. And where you are serving now is important. And we don't have to fall for the trap that ministry looks a certain way,
Hmm.
because it all counts to him.
Yeah.
Because he's not about an action, he's about your heart. And
Hmm.
so, any service, any pouring into relationships, it
Yeah.
all counts. And by serving others, you will feel more confident in your own skin because
Yeah.
we're just meant to serve. We're meant to pour out, and then
Exactly.
that's how we get filled back up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate everything that you shared, and Melissa, thank you for your time. And what I wanted to say that I appreciate, every time we talk, you always share a new insight about you. Like I didn't know you were in public school. Like
Oh,
you
really?
taught, yeah, I didn't know that was new. But what I love, and I'm hoping everyone that's watching sees a thread that there's a very much of an intentionality in the pace that you grow in. You allow yourself to grieve. You allow yourself to find a new sense of identity. You allow yourself to figure out the next steps. Like it doesn't ever sound like it's been rushed. And I think that's something really important to kind of pull out from just our talk is that you've been very intentional in how you are walking with God in each phase that you're in. And I think that's important to point out because we can miss that.
Mhm.
We can keep repeating cycles if we are not intentional about where our feet are planted in that moment. God can say, okay, you didn't get the lesson. I got to send you back around again. And I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but I've had that a few times. And I'm like, I will slow it all the way down just so I can get what I need to get. So I have to keep repeating old lessons. But I think that's a powerful lesson for the women that are watching. Yeah.
Well, and if I can add one last thing, it would be
Yeah.
3 times in the last month, you might be the fourth, um, that say that on the outside I look calm, that I
Hmm.
have a calming presence.
Yeah.
And you've heard the story of the duck that looks calm in the
Yeah.
water, island on the inside. So it's not always pretty up in here.
Yeah.
But I was told years ago that keep the conversation going with the Lord, even if you're mad at him, you don't understand, you're
Yeah,
frustrated. And so there have been times in that I've been
of
frustrated. Like
course.
I wanted the next step, I wanted the answer, like my whole life.
Yeah,
Like, what's the next thing, God?
that's
Um,
me.
like so great at it, but I have tried to keep the conversation going and keep seeking.
I like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Keep the conversation going. I like that.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And so I'm going to encourage everyone, follow her on Facebook. Pretty soon she's going to have some other ways for you to connect with her.
Yes.
So that way you can support her when her book comes out and just continue to see the journey that God has taken her on. So
Mm,
thank you all for joining us, and y'all have a really great rest of your day.
thank you.